Why do I have to read the lawyer part? I can't just get to the good stuff? Fine. The White House, Washington, December 17, 2019. The Honorable, yeah, right, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Washington, Dick, 20515. What's that? Is that like a safe code? Dear Madam Speaker, who remembers Madam? One of the great puppets. I write to express my strongest and most powerful protest against the partisan impeachment crusade being pursued by the Democrats and the House of Representatives. This impeachment represents an unprecedented and unconstitutional abuse of power by Democrat lawmakers, unequaled in nearly 2.5 centuries of American legislative history. The articles of impeachment introduced by the House Judiciary Committee are not recognizable under any standard of constitutional theory, interpretation, or jurisprudence. They include no crimes, no misdemeanors. Are you kidding me? I love crimes and misdemeanors. One of the greats, Woody Allen. And no offenses whatsoever. You have cheapened the importance of the very ugly, total dog, 3 at best word, impeachment. By proceeding with your invalid impeachment, you are violating your oaths of office. You are breaking your allegiance to the Constitution. And you are declaring open war on American democracy. You dare to invoke the Founding Fathers in pursuit of this election scheme, yet your spiteful actions display unfettered contempt for America's founding, and your egregious conduct threatens to destroy that which our founders pledged their flary flies to flild. Even worse than offending the founding fathers, you are offending Americans of faith by continuing to say, oh, I prayed for the president, when you know this statement is totally not true, unless it's negative, if it's meant in a negative sense, and that's a terrible thing that you're doing, but you will have to live with it. Not I! Your first claim, abuse of power, that'd be a great name for a cool Nelson DeMille airport novel. Abuse of power is a completely disingenuous, meritless, and baseless invention of your imagination. You know that I had a totally innocent conversation with the president of Ukraine, totally innocent. I then had a second conversation that has been misquoted, mischaracterized, and fraudulently misrepresented. Fortunately, there was a transcript of the conversation taken. And you know from the transcript, which was immediately made available, totally right away, only 35 days, 60 days, 90 days, 90-day fiancé. I wish I was watching that instead of reading the stupid letter, which was immediately made available, that paragraph in question was perfect. It was totally perfect. A total 10. I said to President Zelensky, I would like you to do us a favor, though. What did I mean? I wanted him to send me some Ukrainian pierogies. Fried, not boiled, baby. Because our country has been through a lot, and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I said, do us a favor. Not me and our country. I said us, not a campaign. I meant U.S. U.S. Not us like us. I was saying do U.S. a favor. But when I call the U.S., I call it us. I then mentioned the Attorney General of the United States. Every time I talk with a foreign leader, I put America's interests first, just like I did with President Zelino and Barnes. You are turning a policy disagreement into two branches of government into an impeachable offense. It is no more legitimate than the executive branch charging members of Congress with crimes for the lawful exercise of legislative power. Whoa, what are they going to do about that one? You know full well that Vice President Biden used his office and $1 billion, that's B with a million on it, of U.S. aid money to coerce Ukraine into firing the prosecutor who was digging into the company paying his son millions of dollars. You know this because Biden bragged about it on a video. Biden openly said, I said, I'm telling you, you're not going to get the $1 billion. I looked at them and I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch, he got fired. Even Joe Biden admitted just days ago in an interview with Nipper that it looked bad. Now you are trying to impeach me by falsely accusing me of doing what Joe Biden has admitted he actually did. President Zelensky has repeatedly declared that I did nothing wrong and that there was no pressure. Okay? And I pushed out a huge fatty waddy straight out of my ass during that call. He didn't even hear it. I did nothing wrong. He didn't hear it. It was silent but deadly. He further emphasized that it was a good phone call, that I don't feel pressure, and I explicitly stressed nobody pushed me. The Ukrainian foreign minister stated very clearly, I have never seen a direct link between investigations and security assistance. He also said there was no pressure. Dun 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 ding dong. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, a supporter of the Ukraine, who met privately with President Zelensky, has said, at no time during this meeting was there any mention by Zelensky or any Ukrainian that they were feeling pressure to do anything in return for the military aid. Many meetings have been held between representatives of Ukraine and our country. Never once did Ukraine complain about the pressure being applied. Not once! Ambassador Sondland testified that I told him, no, quid pro quo. I want nothing. I want nothing. I want President Zelensky to do the right thing. Do what he ran on. The second claim, so-called obstruction of Congress, is perpetuously and dangerously. House Democrats are trying to impeach the duty-elected President of the United States for asserting constitutionally based privileges that have been asserted on a bipartisan basis by administrations of both political parties throughout our nation's history. God, this is boring. Under that standard, every American president would have been impeached many times over. As liberal libel law professor Jonathan Turley Burley warned when addressing congressional Democrats, I can't emphasize this enough. If you impeach a president, if you make a high crime and misdemeanor, which is a great Woody Allen movie, out of going to the courts, it is an abuse of power. It's your abuse of power. You're doing precisely what you're criticizing the president for doing. Everyone, you included, knows what is really happening. Your chosen candidate, Crooked Hillary, lost the election in 2016 because she got the hippie shakes in an electoral college landslide, 306 to 227. Hey, Jackie. And you and your party have never recovered from this crushing defeat. You have developed a full-fledged case of what many in the media call Trump derangement syndrome. And sadly, you will never get over it because Trump derangement syndrome is even worse than AIDS. You are willing or should I say unwilling and unable to accept the verdict issued at the ballot box during the great election of 2016, back when horses rode through the streets and cobblestone and the gas lamp and an old whore could be in the corner of the street and go, "Would you want my muff for a tuppence?" So you have to spend 3 straight years attempting to overturn the will of the American people and nullify their votes. Overturn the will of the American people? The American people haven't even died yet, and you're trying to cash in on their will. You view democracy as your enemy. Speaker Pelosi, you admitted just last week, I remember, at a public forum that your party's impeachment effort has been going on for 2.5 years. Great sitcom. Long before you ever heard about a phone call with Ukraine. 19 minutes after I took the oath of office, the Washington Post with Jeff Bezos and the Amazon packages and the stupid boxes singing in the Christmas commercials published a story headline. The campaign to impeach President Trump has begun. Less than 3 months after my inauguration, Representative Maxine Waters stated, "I'm going to fight every day until he's impeached." House Democrats introduced the first impeachment resolution against me within months of my inauguration for what will be regarded as one of our country's best decisions, the firing of James the Tall Weirdo Comey. See Inspector General reports. Where's he? Who, the world now knows, is one of the dirtiest cops our nation has ever seen. A ranting and raving Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib declared just hours after she's sworn into office, "We're going to go in there and we're going to impeach the motherfucker." First off, I have only spooned with my mother. We've never fucked. Representative Al Green said in May, "I'm concerned that if we don't impeach this president, he will get re-elected." Again, you and your allies said and did all these things long before you ever heard of President Zelensky or anything related to Ukraine. As you know very well, this impeachment drive has nothing to do with Ukraine or the totally appropriate conversation I had with the new president. It only has to do with your attempt to undo the election of 2016 and steal the election of 2020. Let's go for it all. Congressman Adam Shifty Shit-Licking Schiff cheated and lied all the way to the present day, even going so far as to fraudulently make up out of thin air like a magician my conversation with President Zelensky of Ukraine and read this fantasy language to Congress as though he said it were me. It wasn't even a good fantasy, like one where you go home and there's like some woman there and she's like, "Oh, I was here to replace the sink, but I guess now we can eat pizza together and you can pee on me." His shameless lies and deceptions, dating all the way back to the Russian hoax, is one of the main reasons we are here today. You and your party are desperate housewives to distract from how America's extraordinary economy, incredible jobs, boom, record stock market, soaring competence, and flourishing citizens. Your party simply cannot compete with our record 7 million new jobs, the lowest ever unemployment for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans, a rebuilt military, a complete reform with choice and accountability for our great veterans, more than 170 new federal judges, and 2 Supreme Court justices, historic tax and regulation cuts, and the elimination of the individual mandate. The first decline in prescription drug prices in half a century. The first new branch of United States military since 1947. The Space Force. strong protection of the Second Amendment, criminal justice reform, a defeated ISIS caliphate, and the killing of the world's #1 terrorist leader, al-Baghdadi, the replacement of the disastrous NAFTA trade deal with the wonderful USMCA, Mexico and Canada, a breakthrough Phase 1 trade deal with China, massive new trade deals with Japan and South Korea, withdrawal from the terrible Iran nuclear deal, cancellation of the unfair and costly Paris Climate Accord, becoming the world's top energy producer, recognition of Israel's capital, opening the American embassy in Jerusalem, and recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Gonad Heights, a colossal reduction in illegal border crossings, the ending of catch and release, and the beginning of Catcher in the Rye, and the building of the southern border wall. And that is just the beginning. There's so much more. You cannot defend your extreme policies, open borders, mass migration, high crime, crippling taxes, socialized healthcare, destruction of American energy, late-term taxpayer-funded abortion. They're giving babies. Babies are coming out in 9 months. Elimination of the Second Amendment, radical far-left theories of law and judges, and constant partisan obstruction of both common sense and common good. There is nothing I would rather do than stop referring to your party as the do-nothing Democrats. Do-nothing Democrats. Unfortunately, I don't know that you will ever give me a chance to do so. After 3 years of unfair and unwarranted investigations, $45 million spent, 18 angry Democrat prosecutors, the entire force of the FBI heading by leadership now proven to be totally incompetent and corrupt, you found nothing. Few people in high position could have endured or passed this test. You do not know, nor do you care, the great damage and hurt you've inflicted upon wonderful and living members of my family, except for Melania, who I don't care what happens to her, or Tiffany, whatever. And someone told me recently, I have a son named Barron. You conducted a fake investigation upon the democratically elected president of the United States, and you're doing it yet again. There are not many people who could have taken the punishment inflicted during this period of time and yet done so much for the success of America and its citizens. But instead of putting our country first, you have decided to disgrace our country still further. You completely failed with the Mueller report because there's nothing to find. So you decided to take the next hoax that came along, the phony phone call with Ukraine, even though it was a perfect call, totally great call, the best call. And by the way, when I speak to foreign countries, there are many people with permission listening to the call on both sides of the conversation. Okay? We have Nazis listening. We have other people listening. You are the ones interfering in America's elections. You are the ones subverting America's democracy. You are the ones obstructing justice. You are the ones bringing pain and suffering to our republic for your own selfish, personal, political, and partisan gain. Before the impeachment hoax, it was the Russian witch hunt. Against all evidence and regardless of the truth, you and your deputies claimed that my campaign colluded with the Russians. A grave, malicious, and slanderish lie. A falsehood like no other. You forced our nation through turmoil and torment over a wholly fabricated story. Illegally purchased from a foreign spy by Hillary Clinton and the DNC in order to assault our democracy. Yet when the monstrous lie was debunked and this Democrat conspiracy dissolved into dust, you did not apologize. You didn't recant. You didn't ask to be forgiven. You showed no remorse, no capacity for self-reflection, and that's my job. Instead, you pursued your next libelous, liberalist, and vicious crusade. You engineered an attempt to frame and defame an innocent person, me. All of this was motivated by personal political calculation. Your speakership and your party are held hostage by your most deranged and radical representatives on the far left. Each one of your members lives in fear of a socialist primary challenger. This is what is driving impeachment. Look at Congressman Nadler's challenger. Look at yourself and others. Don't take our country down with your party. Don't take our country down, Bruce. If you cared, truly cared, about our freedom and liberty of our nation, then you would be devoting your vast investigative resources to exposing the full truth concerning the FBI's horrifying abuses of power during and after the 2016 election, including the use of spies against my campaign, the submission of false evidence to a figure court, and the concealment of exculpatory evidence in order to frame the innocent. Boy, I shouldn't have had that second fish sandwich. I would think you would personally be appalled by these revelations because in your press conference the day you announced the Russian impeachment, you tied the impeachment effort directly to the completely discredited Russia hoax, declaring twice that all roads lead to Putin, when you know that is an abject lie. I have been far tougher on Russia than President Obama ever even thought to be. He didn't even think about it. Any member of Congress who votes in support of impeachment is not my friend anymore. Against every shred of truth, fact, evidence, and legal principle is showing how deeply they revile the voters and how truly they detest America's constitutional order. Our founders feared the tribalization of partisan politics. And you, not me, not the one who loves Nazis, you're bringing their worst fears to life. Worse still, there's even more. Worse still, I have been deprived of basic constitutional duty process. From the beginning of this impeachment scam right up to the present, I have been denied the most fundamental rights afforded by the Constitution, including the right to present evidence. And it's Christmas. Everyone loves Christmas presented evidence. To have my own counsel present to confront accusers and to call and cross-examine witnesses, like the so-called whistleblower who started this entire hoax with a false report on the phone call that bears no relationship to the actual phone call that was made. Once I presented the transcribed call, which surprised and shocked the fraudsters, they never thought that such evidence would be presented. Let me tell you, they never thought it. The so-called whistleblower, the second whistleblower, who the hell's that, disappeared because they got caught. Their report was a fraud, and they were no longer going to be made available to us. In other words, once the phone call was made public, your whole plot blew up, just like the end of season 1 of The Expanse. But that didn't stop you from continuing. More due process was afforded to those accused in the Salem witch trials. Tituba got more due process than I did. I'm Tituba. You and others on your committees have long said impeachment must be bipartisan. It is not. You said it was very divisive. It certainly is. Even far more than you ever thought possible. And it will only get worse. This is nothing more than an illegal partisan attempt to coup de ville that will, based on recent sentiment, badly fail at the voting booth. You're not just after me as president. You are after the entire Republican Party. But because of this colossal injustice, it's a big one. Our party is more united than it has ever been before. Strike me down and I shall become even more powerful. powerful than you could have possibly imagined. History will judge you harshly as you proceed with this impeachment charade. Your legacy will be that of turning the House of Representatives from a revered legislative body into a star chamber. The last film directed by famed choreographer Bob Fosse. The story of a young blonde who gets wasted. It's a bummer. The star chamber of partisan persecution. Perhaps most insulting of all is your false display of solemnity. Soleil Moonfry, you apparently have so little respect for the American people that you expect them to believe that you are approaching this impeachment somberly, reservedly, and reluctantly. No intelligent person believes that you are saying. Nobody believes what you're saying. Since the moment I won the election, the Democrat Party has been possessed by impeachment fever. Oh boy. Impeachment fever. There's no recompense. This is not a somber affair. Impeachment fever. You are making a mockery of impeachment, and you are scarcely concealing your hatred of me, of the Republican Party, and tens of millions of patriotic Americans. The voters are wise, and they are seeing straight through this empty, hollow, dangerous game, the most dangerous game, because I'm going to hunt you all down that you are playing. I have no doubt the American people will hold you and the Democrats fully responsible in the upcoming 2020 election, hosted by Barbara Walters. They will not soon forgive your perversion of justice and abuse of power, but they'll always remember my perversion and my abuse of my own ass at the toilet. There is far too much that needs to be done to improve the lives of our citizens. It is time for you and the highly partisan Democrats in Congress to immediately cease this impeachment fantasy and get back to the work for the American people. While I have no expectation that you'll do so, I write this letter for the purpose of history and to put my thoughts on permanent and delicious record. 100 years from now, when people look back at this affair, I want them to understand it and learn from it so that it can never happen to another president again. And also, when 100 years from now, people go, how did the Nazis happen twice in less than 100 years? We can look at this letter and go, see, it was so easy because everybody just sat back and pretended that everything would just be okay. And if we just follow the rules, eventually this guy will go away. But that's not what's going to happen. And instead, we're heading towards the darkest decade in American history. The Roaring 20s! Sincerely yours, Donald Jumbledum, President of the United States of America. CC United States Senate, CC Sabathia.